Have you ever felt like the game of life is just rigged? You know, like the default settings are stuck on impossible? Well, what if I told you that early retirement isn't some crazy far-off dream, but actually a game you can win? Today, we're going to figure out how to bend the rules and exploit the math to beat the game.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why the standard path feels like you're playing on hardcore mode. Then, we'll crack the code with something called the Golden Goose equation. After that, we'll cover the surprisingly boring way to actually win this thing, how to hit the accelerator using leverage, and then we'll have a quick reality check. And finally, the best part, unlocking Sandbox Mode.
So first up, life on hardcore mode. Let's just talk about why the default path, the one we're all told to follow, is basically broken. I mean, think about it. The standard script we're handed feels less like a fun adventure and more like a super difficult video game. You know, the kind where you have to follow a very specific set of rules and there's almost zero room for error.
And this timeline just says it all, doesn't it? In your 20s, you get into a mountain of debt for school. You spend your 40s and then your 60s working to pay it all off. And then finally, when you're 65 plus and your body makes noises like a bag of crushed potato chips, you're told, okay, now you can have fun. It's absurd. But what if we could just change the rules of the game?
And this is where everything flips on its head. This is the mindset shift you have to make. Stop thinking of retirement as some age you have to reach. It's not. It's just a number. It's a solvable math equation. And once you see it that way, oh man, the whole game changes.
Okay, so if it's just a math problem, let's solve it. That brings us right to our second part, the Golden Goose equation. This is the simple math that unlocks the whole thing.
So here's a super simple way to think about it. All of your invested money, that's your golden goose. That goose lays golden eggs every year, which is just the passive income your investments generate. The goal of the entire game is to grow a goose that's so fat, you can live entirely off the eggs it lays without ever having to touch the goose itself.
Which, of course, leads us to the biggest question of all, right? Exactly how much money do you need? Just how fat does that goose have to be before you can call it quits?
Well, the answer is actually incredibly simple. It's called your freedom number, and you figure it out by taking what you spend in an entire year, your annual expenses, and just multiplying it by 25. That's it. This comes from something called the 4% rule, which basically says you can safely pull out 4% of your investments each year, and based on history, it should last forever. Let's make that real for a second. Let's say you spend about $40,000 a year on everything: rent, food, you name it. You take that 40 grand, multiply it by 25, and there's your number. Your goose needs to be a cool $1 million. At that point, your investments can spin off enough cash for you to live on forever.
Okay, $1 million can sound like a lot. So how in the world do you actually get there? Well, that brings us to section 3, the boring way to win. And I mean boring in the best way possible. This is all about being the tortoise, not the hare. When people think about getting rich, they picture the person on the left, some stressed out day trader, chugging coffee, trying to find that one magic stock, that one needle in a giant haystack. But the proven path, the one that actually works, is the one on the right. It's called the Boglehead approach. It's simple, it's calm, and you know what? Instead of looking for the needle, you just buy the whole haystack.
So how do you buy the haystack? It's easy. You just consistently buy a low-cost, total market index fund. With one purchase, you own a tiny little piece of thousands of companies. You're not betting on one horse. You're betting on the entire economy to keep growing over time. Then you just sit back and let the magic of compound interest do the heavy lifting. And the hardest part, the real trick, is to just do nothing. Just let it grow. Now, doing nothing is great, but just investing a little bit from your paycheck every month could still take 40 years. So how do we speed this up? Welcome to section 4, the Accelerator. This is how you use leverage to get there in 10 years instead of 40.
So there are basically 4 kinds of leverage. There's labor, which is hiring people. There's capital, using money to make more money. And then there are the 2 most powerful ones for most of us today. Code, building software that works for you 24/7, and media, creating content that people can watch or read while you're sleeping.
The whole point of leverage is to completely detach your time from your income. So if you run a pressure washing business, you're trading your time directly for money. But if you film yourself doing it and put those videos on YouTube, that video, that's media leverage, can earn you money all day, every day. That's how you pour gasoline on the fire. You're not just feeding the goose with your job anymore, you've built a machine that's fattening it up for you around the clock.
All right, this all sounds pretty amazing, right? We've got the simple math, a clear plan, even some cheat codes to speed it up. But now we need a reality check. Because honestly, the math part is easy. It's the psychology that's the hard part.
I mean, when you boil it all down, the entire strategy is just 3 simple steps. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference, and wait. That's it. It is so unbelievably simple, and yet this is where almost everybody fails. Why? Because we're human, we're impatient, we get scared, and we're wired to chase shortcuts, not to follow a slow, boring, but guaranteed plan.
The absolute hardest part is keeping your cool when the market tanks, and every news channel is screaming that the world is ending. But this quote right here is the perfect way to think about it. Look, if the world actually ends, your 401k is going to be the least of your problems. So you might as well just stay the course and bet that in the long run, things are going to be okay.
And that brings us to the final and most important part, unlocking Sandbox Mode. This is about the real prize. Because let's be honest, the point of all this isn't to just sit on a beach and do nothing for 50 years. The real prize isn't laziness, it's freedom. This is why all of this matters. It's not about escaping work. It's about buying your freedom so that work becomes optional. It's about being able to choose what you work on, when you do it, and who you do it with. It's about not needing to ask a boss for permission to live your own life. It's about owning your time completely and totally.
So I leave you with this one last question. Once you've won the game, once you've unlocked Sandbox Mode for your own life, and money is no longer the main reason you make decisions, what would you do? What would you build in your sandbox?